Well, hello, we're back here at Landell Flutes for the Vermont Guild of Flute Making, and we're working through the process of overhauling a flute. So I'm here in the polishing room, and I'm John Landell. I'm the master maker of Landell Flutes, and I'm here to give you a demonstration of how we polish a buffing process here on the flute. But before I do that, I wanted to let you know some of the things that we have to do to get ready to polish the flute to make it just like new, if not better. I wanted to say too that you can watch me polish the flute, and it would be a good idea to watch me many times before you try to do this yourself. That's the way my teachers taught me. Ed Michon at the Powell Company said every time he had to polish a flute, come over here and watch. And I probably watched him polish 15 or 20 flutes before he let me go ahead and do it by myself. And then he watched me. So there's no real way I can teach you how to do this, really, unless you're here and taking a class. And so this 1 week class here will take you through the process that I'm going to explain to you of getting a flute ready to buff and to put in all new pads. The hard work happens in the shop, and this part of it is sort of fun and a little bit dirty and noisy. So I'll tell you, the process involves removing the wear and any damage that has happened to the flute since the last time it was overhauled or since it was new. So I'd remove the end play from the key tubes and wear at the pivots. So here all the keys are in the box now, and I've prepared them. It takes several days to do this work, and all the key wear has been removed. The end play means the way the keys can move side to side after you've been playing, for a long time, playing all your scales and playing hard music. The ends of the key tubes are like this. They're rubbing against each other, and eventually the keys will move side to side. So we have a way of swedging those with pliers, and that stretches the tube just enough so that it gets rid of that end play. And then there are marks that the pliers leave, very fine lines, and so those swedging plier marks need to be removed by draw filing with a number 6 draw file. And that can be easily polished out here. Of course, I'll remove all the pads. I'll remove all the corks in between and in the back of the keys, all except for I don't remove the trill and the D sharp corks. Like here, that's a nice big cork, and that'll be okay to be used over again. And the 2 trill levers each have large corks on them, so I use those over again, unless they fall off, which happens sometimes. But ordinarily all the other corks and pieces of paper and shims and things like that are all removed, and then when we get back to the bench, then we'll put in new pads. Remove the French bushings. Now, the metal French bushings are not interchangeable, so we have to mark the tops of those French bushings with a Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So those French bushings go back on exactly the same place where they came back off of, just like the pivot screws have to go back into the posts where they came out of. So once the pads are out, I can measure the cups with the calipers and come up with the dimensions for ordering all of the parts and new pads, which takes a few days. Meanwhile, I'll be sanding the cork, the places that there are abrasion from the cork or things like that, or sanding the screws, the screw head washer, all those things, so that it looks new again. There may be dents. People have accidents with flutes and they bang them against the music stand or other things. And we have a cool way of removing all the dents and all the scratches so that you won't see that dent again unless it was really, really sharp. Sometimes those leave a ripple, and they can only be removed by a draw file with a wide number 6 file. So after that, then the body is sanded with 1200, which is a very fine grit. You can probably see that. It's sort of a even sanded surface. Now the reason I do that is because in polishing, the polishing wheel is going to be cutting across the outer surface this way. Diagonal cuts, first this way, then this way, then this way, then this way. I need to have a different sort of line on the surface of the flute so that we come up with a perfectly smooth surface after polishing. That's the secret of buffing wheel. You always go once this direction and once the other direction. So the diagonal are going this way one time and then this way the other time. Back and forth, just to keep everything perfectly smooth. I will take out the pins and leave the pinned key back, put it back on the steel with the loose keys removed. So all 3 pin sections, we call the metal part, the axle of the key, we call the steel. That's a technical word from flute making. It is made of steel. Nowadays they're using stainless. And so in order to polish these very small parts, you can see how small that is. It's impossible to hold that and polish. So, and also to keep the grit from getting into these little tiny holes and losing things, I take the loose keys off and I put the pin keys back on again. So I hope you can see that. There's a pin lug there. This is a Powell 2100 flute, which is a little different than the Boehm flutes, but they do have pins. And here's the left-hand section without the loose keys. The G key would be here, the A key would be here, but these are pinned. The B-flat key and the B-flat kicker, those are on, and I leave them on with the pins, again, so that we don't get a lot of Tripoli and rouge and crap inside there. They're hard to get out. So when I get a chance to polish each of these keys, you're going to watch me do that at the wheel here. This is a Tripoli polishing wheel. The abrasive is called Tripoli. It's a coarse abrasive that does remove silver. So using Tripoli, you have to be very careful and not take a long time, not keep it in one place, but keep everything moving all the time. Then once that's done, I'll put everything in the ultrasonic cleaner, like 25 minutes. After that, then I'll come over to the other side, the other polishing wheel over here. You can't see it, but it's just the same thing. It's a buff, a muslin puff, and we'll be using rouge. Rouge is red in French, and that's what this abrasive is. It's red. Very, very, very fine abrasive, and I cut it with kerosene. So there's a hunk of rouge in there, and the brush, I have some kerosene in there, and that's what I will be applying to the outside of the key in order to go ahead and polish it over there. So let's see. Before polishing, I want to make sure I have a good fit between the head joint and the body and the foot joint. Those fittings have to be really snug but smooth, not too hard, not too soft, too easy. I would go after replacing the head joint cork with new cork. I would polish the bore, the inside of the tubes. I've already done that. Polished in here with Tripoli, and all the tone holes get polished in here so that they're just as smooth and just like new. But all that has to happen before I go in here, because when we're all done we want to be really clean. So the tone holes, before any of this happens, I have to go and level the tops of the tone holes. I'll be using pads that are perfectly flat. The old felt pads that we used to use for a long, long time, are not perfectly flat. They have up and down surface, and the tone holes as well were up and down, so we had to use partial shims to build up the low spots where there were leaks. Put a little partial shim here, a little here and there, and eventually you get a seal that goes 360 all the way around the top of the tone hole. That's the art of padding, and that's what we'll do in the padding class. In the overhaul and mechanical class, you will go home with your project flute ready to pad. And in the first class, the padding techniques class, we'll go over how to pad with the felt pads and how to make them seal perfectly. The reason I do that is because they're more difficult, and I wanted to give students as much experience taking the flute apart and putting it together, and taking the pads out and putting them in, so that they really get familiar with each key. Like each key is an individual. Like some of your friends, you know who they are as soon as you see them, even if you don't see their face. You know each key, and you know where it goes and how it goes on the flute. Later on, after you've developed some skills padding with felt pads, then you can move on to the more modern pads that are perfectly flat and have a better skin on the outside. So we get into that in advanced padding, a new class. And I hope you'll be able to find a way to do all these things to get ready for a small business, to do repairs for flutes for the people in your area. And it's important to know that by nature, flute repair is a local business. I do a certain amount of pad work for people who are a long distance from me because they know me and reputation and so forth. I like to do custom work. I might be changing things significantly and only a flute maker could do. But ordinarily people want to be able to take their flute to a local person where they know who they are, they've developed a relationship. And that's the idea, that you want to have a reputation, not like a barber or a hairdresser, you know, somebody who has professional skill and personality, and you develop a relationship with that person. So if anything goes wrong, right away you can take it back, and you can drive there and leave it for a day or so and get the things fixed right away. So think about that. By nature, padding, repair work for flutes usually is best at a local or more or less regional level. People don't mind driving 2 or 3 hours, or even farther if they know what they're getting into, and that they've developed a good relationship. So, okay, that's the background for what I'm going to do here. The rest of it's sort of boring, but I want you to be able to sit and watch this padding. I'll move the camera closer so you can see very carefully what the moves are. There are specific set of moves that I use when I'm padding and when I'm polishing any particular key. Ordinarily, in the process of polishing a key, I will go around the top of the key, the pointed arm, or the arm, Y arm, whatever it is. I'll go around the skirt of the cup, and so that means the key part of it, the part that holds the pad, will be done. Then I'll work on the mechanism tube, and holding very carefully, so not too long. You don't want to hold things that are very long. You want to be right next to where you're working. And then usually there is a lever, a piece that's at the other end of the key, and that's the last thing I do. So that's my ordinary routine for polishing keys. That way hopefully I don't miss anything. There are a lot of different parts to the flute, and after polishing hundreds of keys, then you develop a rhythm, you develop how long to stay with it on a spot, and you develop an eye to look for scratches and anything that might need a little more time. All this happens very gradually. Now, the danger of polishing is these keys have little kickers that are sticking up on the back side of the key. Okay, here's the pad, here's the hinge, and on the back side there's a kicker. And that's the part that sits against the body of the flute. if you polish this and hold it like that, where this little piece is sticking up like that, the polishing wheel is going to grab that and pull it right out of your hand. Just like that. Instantly it's on the floor and probably bent. So whenever you're polishing close to a kicker, and the nice thing about the 2100, the kicker's really small, it's very short. Ordinarily that kicker is probably twice that length. But this is one of the developments of the Powell 2100, and it makes for other kind of problems, but it's much easier and safer to polish than an ordinary flute. The way to get around it is to put your thumb or your fingernail or something underneath the kicker. So as you're polishing, that wheel just can't get caught underneath this little piece and pull it out of your hands. So that, just by way of a warning and a heads up, anytime you have something sticking up, okay, there's something sticking up, it's all by itself, the polishing wheel is going to grab that, especially if it's sitting in this direction, the polishing wheel is going to come and grab that and pull it out of your hands. So be warned, be careful, keep that in mind, and you'll be okay. So we're going to start polishing now. This is a polishing motor. It's a really big one. You don't have to have one this big for repair work, but I got this big one because I'm a flute maker, and sometimes I need something that's got more power. Then too, I have a vacuum. The vacuum is located in the next bay of my double garage workshop. You'll hear this when I turn it on. It's a vacuum that's sucking air from behind where the polishing wheel is, and it's going up in here, and it's going through a large, probably a 6-inch diameter tube out to the other bay in the garage. So it's nice to have it in a different place because it's loud and everything gets noisy. So I hope while I'm doing this you'll be able to hear me. That's the vacuum, and this is the polishing motor. Now I'm going to zoom the camera in, and hopefully this is going to get us where we want to be. I'm sorry you can't watch over my shoulder. Sometimes my hand's going to be in the way. First thing I do is to use a rake. This is called a rake. And you see all the teeth on there? It's going to rough the surface of the wheel a little bit. See how the fine fabric gets sucked into the polishing vacuum. This is my AAA. They come in much longer pieces. I have to cut them up because they're too big. So I'll do the big parts first. I'm going to put them in the ultrasonic while I do all the keys. So then the body will be ready when I'm ready to do the rouge side. One rule, very important rule, there's always some engraving. Here's the marking, the Vern Q. Powell marking. You know, never go over that with the polishing AAA. It will wear out that marking very quickly. It only takes 3 or 4 times, and it's almost impossible to read. So avoid polishing with AAA over the marking, the engraving. On the rouge side, it's not removing metal. The rouge side, it's just more or less coloring the surface to make it look beautiful. So we don't have to worry about removing metal on the rouge. I hope you can see the technique here. It goes always from up here to toward the floor. Then turn it 90 degrees. Same thing. Start here, low, start low on the part, and feed the part toward the floor over the same strip. So every time I do a strip of surface in one direction, down, I'm going to change and go down over that same strip and turn towards me, turn towards myself. So get a new strip. Go down towards the floor, go the other way, down towards the floor, then turn. It's always the same pattern. Down, down, turn. 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 I think to myself, I'm a machine. Just a machine. Gotta do it just like a machine. So I've gone halfway, almost halfway. I want to draw a line about here on the head joint and not go beyond that line. I'll turn it around and go the other way from the top. See, about here. I'll go around the other way and stop here. That's because if you don't stop that way, the wheel's going to come around and catch the lip plate on the way out. So just avoid doing that. Avoid making the wheel come up on under the lip plate. You're going to come down on the lip plate if you're polishing the head joint. Now we're going to do the lip plate now from the same direction. I can get in underneath the lip plate by putting the head joint this way, vertically, toward me, and pushing that polishing fabric underneath just a little bit. Always looking into the surface of the silver. Instead of looking directly at the surface, I'm looking into the surface, at the reflection of light, to look for the surface's finish. How smooth, how clean. Should be like a mirror, should be just reflecting light so well. Now to do this part of the lip plate here, this edge that you're blowing against, this edge is really important not to round this edge. Your lip is going to be blowing the air this way into the hole. And if this edge gets rounded, the sound is very dull and old sounding. Sharp edge, if it's really sharp, it doesn't sound nice either. It's just like that. So whoever's made the head joint has taken great care to get just the right amount of edge on here. So whatever you do, don't let the wheel dig in from this direction, coming down into the hole. That way. So I'm going to come around the other way, from the back, on this side, polish that surface. So I've done half of it, now I can do this side. Turn it end to end. Turn it end to end. Do it this way. Okay, that's the head joint. Now I've got the foot joint. So again, I'm going to do half of the foot joint from this way. I'll draw a line just opposite the posts and the rib. I'll draw a line mentally on this side of the head joint along here and do all of my polishing in this direction until I get to that line, and turn it around and do all my polishing from the rib out to that line in this direction. Okay, I hope you can see that. I'm going to start from this side. Avoid, at all costs, avoid hitting the tone holes with the polishing wheel. So put your thumbs over the tone holes when you get near the tone holes so that that polishing wheel isn't going to take any metal off the top, because I've already spent hours getting these flat. These tone holes are flat, so flat that my gauge, when I put the gauge on top here, which is the perfectly flat gauge, I don't see any light when I put my light inside the flute. I'll work on those tone holes till they're absolutely flat. switch end doesn't have a monogram. Oh yes, it does. The monogram's right there at the end of the post, so we're good. Now it's possible to get very close to the rib if you bend the wheel by forcing it and pushing hard and keep a high angle. You get right up close to that rib that way. So I'm only using triply on the areas where I've actually sanded with 1,200 people with paper. The large, the broad areas, these are areas that get scratched. You know, people wear jewelry on their hands, they wear jewelry on their wrists, dangling from their ears. I mean, there's lots and lots of scratches sometimes on the flutes, depending on how much jewelry the player is accustomed to wearing. Okay, here's the center joint. Again, I'm going to draw that imaginary line just opposite the side where the posts are. So about here, right along here, that's my imaginary line. I'm going to polish coming down from this way on that side, and then when I turn it around, I'll be working on this side and come back and stop right there at that line. I'm going to start in this direction. Cover the tone holes. Grab the spring, keep the spring out of the way. I've done this now. Looks good. So I'll give you an idea what this next step is here. Oops, sorry. Over there in the corner next to the towel is an ultrasonic cleaner. It's going to jiggle the water at high frequency. You can't even hear how high it is. And all of the Tripoli is going to be dissolved into this water, which has some agents in it. Now I've got a few keys which I stretched with the swedging pliers. And I'm just going to do a little bit of polishing on those keys with the ultrasonic, with the Tripoli. So when I'm doing a key, I want to cover the ends of the mechanism tube. I've made a tool that slides in and puts a covering over the end of the tube because the wheel is going to round over that edge if I'm not careful. I'm just polishing the mechanism tube where I'm stretching it with the pliers. I'm going to turn off the camera now and come back in a minute, and we'll do the other side.